Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Joe Barbera, and I am honored and pleased to be here to celebrate the 35th anniversary of the Taste of Howard County to benefit Gilchrist. We're doing a virtual wine tasting this year, and wine is one of my passions, and any of you that know me know that this is a lot of fun to do. There are just a few things that I want to make certain we do. First of all, thank all the sponsors and for all the VIPs who spent some money to be part of this. Remember, we're doing this to benefit Gilchrist. We have had personal experiences with the benefits of Gilchrist and what they've done for our restaurant. We had a couple of chefs that were there as part of Gilchrist over the years. So I am so happy to be here. So let's talk about wine, one of my favorite things. First of all, there aren't any rules when it comes to drinking or tasting wine. The most important thing is to have fun. And the second thing is to remember that wine is food, and serving wine at the right temperature, which I made you all go through, make certain you take it out here and there. And then third, more importantly, is to have some fun. We're going to do a question and answer during the course of this. So please remember to submit your questions through chat, and we'll do as many of those questions as we possibly can. And remember, the only stupid question is the one you don't ask. So what I'd like to do is just talk a little bit about the three wines. First of all, I hope that you have them in your glass. Second, I hope even more that you already tasted them. And third, if you started drinking them a half an hour ago, you're way ahead of me. So that's a beautiful thing. So let's talk about the wineries. What I really tried to do here is to have three different family-owned and operated wineries that are out in the world today dealing with things that are not always so easy. Italy had a huge COVID spike, so I wanted to choose something from Italy. And since I'm Sicilian, I chose the Sicilian wine. So I hope you really enjoy the Bianco. The second is Washington State. As you know, Washington State has had some problems with smoke. The whole West Coast has had problems with smoke. And we really want to try to support in the wine community those folks that are having some difficulty. So I chose a Washington State wine. Third is in Lebanon. And we all know what's happening in Lebanon, how difficult it is to be there. And to have to operate a winery and to do business and to be safe and all those things. So I wanted to make certain that we chose wines that are fun, that you'll enjoy, that are readily available, and that there's something that if you really like, you can go back and get. So I had a chance to do a couple of interviews, which are really fun, and I hope that you enjoy that, with the first two wines. And then I'm going to talk to you a little bit about the Lebanese wine, because when I brought it into the restaurant and had customers taste it, they loved it. So we want to make certain that you had a chance to talk about that. So I want to start off, first of all, salute, and I want you to hear from our friend Michele at El Cesti. Good morning, Michele. Thank you very much for joining us today to talk about one of my favorite wines from Sicily, the El Cesti Bianco. So without further ado, please introduce yourself and let's talk a little bit about the winery, the history, the wine itself, and what your thoughts are on the best things to eat and drink together with it.
Absolutely, yes. Hi, everybody. I'm Michele Di Gregorio. I work for El Cesti since 2010. And today I introduce not only myself, but the cellar, the winery. Okay. El Cesti is a young family winery that was born in 2003. And the owners are the family Palladino and Spanò. They were great producers for generations and generations. And they had right now about 50 hectares of vineyards placed here in Marsala in the southern sides and the hill zone. And so in 2003, El Cesti was born and the dream came true. Yeah. This is the map of Sicily. Here we have Marsala. As you can see, Sicily is an island, a big island in the southern part of Italy, in the center of the Mediterranean Sea. So the internal part of this place here in the borderline between three towns, Marsala, Mazzara del Vallo, but above all, your Salemi, because Salemi, yes. I know that your parents came from here. Is it?
My grandmother was born in Salemi. It's a beautiful place.
Salemi. So, Salemi is very close to Marsala because the center of Marsala with the center the center of Salemi for about 30 kilometers.
Can you tell us a little bit about the grapes that make up the Bianco?
Yeah, absolutely. Now we have today tasting of Isola dei Profumi Bianco. I don't know if it's possible.
It's beautiful. I can see
label.
it. 2019 current vintage.
Yeah,
That's what everybody's
2019.
tasting.
This is Isola dei Profumi Bianco. This is a blend of Grecanico and Catarratto. More Grecanico than Catarratto. We have 60% of Grecanico and 40% is Catarratto. Why two grapes? Because we have, as I just said, two different lands. In the southern part of Marsala, in the south side, we have the Grecanico. The Grecanico is the sandy soil. Is placed at 1 kilometer, just 1 kilometer far from the sea. While in the hill zone, we have the Catarratto in a clay soil. So we have more minerality and more acidity. So it means freshness. So if you agree, I can open the bottle and try to taste together.
Yeah, I wish I could right now. I just had my coffee in the morning, so I can't be able to join you today now.
I can explain for you.
And while you're doing that, a lot of Sicilian grapes are native to certain parts of the country, and the Catarratto and the Grecanico are from that part in the Marsala region, basically southwest. So what are the characteristics when you're tasting, if you would share with folks?
Yeah, absolutely. Catarratto and Grecanico, just said. So as you can see, the color is bright, straw yellow. And on the nose, you will find the Mediterranean fruits, such as citrus fruits or peaches, are very typical of this place. You will find absolutely the salinity and the minerality. So it's very harmonic and well balanced. This is our conception to have a Sicilian wine for every day. That's
our everyday wine here. I'm telling you.
Everyday wine. Yeah, absolutely.
And what do you suggest are the best pairings for the Bianco?
Absolutely. Fish dishes, of course, appetizer. So for the happy hour, this is unbelievable, because you gotta consider that in the Mediterranean cuisine, fish is a very, very typical.
Well, I can't wait to have some in my mouth later today, and I would just like to thank you so very much for taking the time to share with us your passion. Obviously, you're very passionate about your wines, and I hope someday that me or maybe our family and some people that are watching us today can come and visit you. I know, do you do tours?
Yeah, we can make the tour. If you reserve, yes, absolutely. We're waiting for you. Fantastic. Whenever you want.
Well, thank you, Michele. I really appreciate you taking the time. This has been wonderful, and I look forward to meeting you sometime in person rather than just in a box on a computer.
Thank you for your time. I'm very glad to make this with you.
I don't know how you can't have a big smile on your face after meeting Michele. I had so much fun with him. I was so tempted at 10:30 in the morning to have some of the wine because he's so enthusiastic, and passion is everything when it comes to small wineries and producing wine. We love this wine. We sell a ton of it at the restaurant. And one of the things I like the best about it is that it's one of those all-purpose wines you can drink almost anywhere, anytime. I'd say, for summer, it's pool wine, but it's really a wine for any time you want. I have a lot of respect for small winemakers and what they have to go through to be able to get distribution, because there's a lot of things that happen. You can't just make a great wine and it flies off the shelf. You have to have a story. And that's one of the things I wanted y'all to hear today, is the story behind it. You can listen to me, but you'll remember Michele, and every time you take a sip of wine, I'm sure you're going to have a smile on your face like I do. The next great story about wines, and it was something I've recently found out, is from our friends at Rasa Vineyards that are in Walla, Washington. And Walla, Washington is in the the southeastern part of the state. And these two brothers who are mathematicians and engineers and people in the high-tech business decided that they wanted to follow their passion and they wanted to make wine. One of the things, as I said before, about the wine business is that just having a great wine isn't necessarily going to sell it. You have to have a story. So what I'd like to do is I would like to introduce you to Pinto, who's going to tell you his story about Occams Razor, and then we'll come back and talk about the wine after you enjoy this video. Salute. Well, good afternoon, everyone. I'm here with Pinto Nerone from Rasa Vineyards in Washington State. And Pinto, thank you so much for being with us today. We're featuring your Occams Razor. But before we do, let's talk a little bit about yourself and the winery. And I want to hear your great story.
Sure. Well, my brother and I fell in love with wine back in '91. Our Epiphany wine, we actually got to share it together. And we found ourselves in kind of like a Bottle King type store in San Mateo that was going out of business. And they had the 88 Mouton Rouge Shield on a red dot special for $65.
Oh, wow.
And at the time it was, we were recent college grads, and it was 10 times more than what we spent on wine. And I hemmed and hawed, and I thought, it's my brother's graduation, so let's grab a bottle. And we had it that night, and it was a revelation. We had just been learning a little about wine, but we thought it was frankly a lot of bull, a lot of marketing, and we were just drinking cheap wine. But that was an eye opener. We had never tasted anything like it. And then the next day it was even better. And that really just blew us away.
Very cool. Very cool. So what got you into the wine business in Washington State?
Yeah. So what happened was we were both come from high-tech backgrounds, and we were good at it, but it wasn't our overriding passion. But wine evidently was for both of us. So we talked about starting a winery for a long time. And part of the business plan, I realized since we were dedicating the rest of our lives to this, we wanted three things. One was we wanted to, and most importantly, was to make the best wines in the world. The second thing we wanted to do was be a leader in our niche market. And the third thing was we wanted to change the local economic paradigm and give back to the community at large and kind of lift all boats type of deal. When we were looking around for a place to be, we looked at Paso Robles, Sonoma, Napa, but we would have been white noise. We wouldn't have moved the needle in the other things that we wanted to accomplish. So my brother and I came to Walla in '07. We could come here, we could make killer wine and satisfy those other two criteria we wanted. So in '07, we made 2 wines, and it was just a great way to start.
Well, that's a terrific story. Passion is everything when it comes to spending every day and every hour. So from the standpoint of the wines, I love your wines, but I also love the names of the wines. Can you just give us a little story about why you decided to have some fun with that?
Yeah, we realized that when we were getting into the wine game, we came from a computer and engineering backgrounds. And while we were avid consumers, we didn't really know anyone in the industry. So we realized that if we're going to make high-end wine, that we need to try to build a community around our wine and kind of sell our story and have this connection with our consumers. And that was very important to us. So we decided that everything would try to tell a little story about us that's genuine and authentic. So we thought about it and called our first wine, the one that got 94 points, QED. And on the back of the label, it says, "The proof is in the bottle." So that was the one that got 94 points. We have 25 acres in the Rocks District. And so wines coming out of that estate block are going to be called Veritas Sequitur. And Veritas Sequitur means truth follows. So I think everyone's heard the term in vino veritas, there's truth in wine. So I kind of took that and played off of it and called the wine Truth Follows, Veritas Sequitur. And what I'm saying is the truth in the wine follows from the truth in the soil.
Wow, that's terrific. I'm glad my 4 years of Latin in high school are coming in handy here. Tell us about Occams Razor. That's the wine we're tasting today. And everybody, that doesn't know about the story about Occams Razor, about the monk who kind of came up with this, keep it simple philosophy, and how you came about that with this wine.
Yeah. So what had traditionally happened was, we do everything in small lots, and then at the end of it, it gives us a lot of options for blending. So typically what we had done in the past was once we blended everything for Rasa, we would sell the bulk juice off to other wineries and they'd put it into their wine. But in 2016, we had some excess 2014 left over. So my brother suggested, why don't we make a killer sub $20 bottle of wine? So we took everything we had and we said, okay, let's sell this at 18 bucks. And we came up with a great blend of, it's predominantly Syrah and Cab, and the rest is rounded out with some Petit Verdot, Mourvedre, Touriga Nacional, Grenache, you know, whatever we happen to have a little bit of. If it blends well, we do it. And it's been a great thing. The beauty of it is it's a wine, it's a sub $20 wine that can easily age 10 years. You know, it definitely punches over its weight class. And I just love the wine because the fruit comes all from our top vineyard. So since then, what we've gotten to do to keep the quality up. And we treat it like we do our top high-end wine. And so we're able to get really great value for that. Yeah.
Tell us about the 2017 Occams Razor that we're going to be tasting today.
It's just a fantastic value. It's predominantly Cab and Syrah, and then the rest, there's Petit Verdot, Touriga Nacional, Mourvedre, Grenache, and a little Merlot as well, and Cab Franc. Just
so a nice field blend, right?
Yeah, a nice field blend. It's a wonderful wine. Actually, just in July, Eric Asimov of New York Times, they released the top 20 under 20 around the world, and that 2017 Occams Razor made the list. Yeah, it's just it's a wonderful wine. You know, we're sold out of it. After that came out in July, literally 3 weeks later, we were done with the wine.
What's your favorite thing to eat with that wine? What would you suggest?
I like, it's got the power to stand up to a steak. I actually really like eating lamb chops with it. I think that's fantastic. I've had duck breast with it, which is great, and just a pasta. They're all fantastic. And I've actually even had just a portobello mushroom burger with it, and that actually works too. Depends on, you know, you got to make it a little hearty, but it comes out fantastic. Yeah, lamb's my favorite pairing with the Occams.
So one last question, and I think just in terms of the geography of Washington State, there's been a lot of talk about the fires on the West Coast and the fires in Washington. Have those impacted you in any way?
Well, we were about 200 miles away from any wildfire. So if you're basically within a 25-mile radius of the wildfires, you should be very concerned. We're far enough away, so I'm fairly confident we're not affected because you know how far we are. But I really won't know 100% until malolactic is done and we assess it in middle of February.
Just from the standpoint of the time you spent with us, I would like to just personally thank you, and on behalf of Hospice of Howard County, the fundraiser we're doing and the virtual tasting. It's been absolutely a pleasure, and I'm very impressed with how passionate and how much depth of knowledge you have and understanding about this business. And I hope everybody has a chance to kind of soak it in. You know, you got to be a farmer, and I give you a lot of credit. You know, it's acts of God, and all the things you have to deal with are a little bit different than what we have going here. So,
yeah. Well, thank you for saying that.
You're welcome. I really appreciate you spending the time with us today, and the best of luck to you. And I know that I love your wine, and we're going to sell a lot more of it once folks have a chance to get it in their mouths.
Oh, good. Well, I'm glad to hear that.
Awesome. Wow. I hope you enjoyed that story as much as I did. Pinto and his brother Billo are making some amazing wines out in Washington State. Remember to submit your questions through the chat. We have a couple of questions, but we'd like a lot more. And like I said before, if you don't have a chance to ask your question, you want to track me down, please email me. I'd be happy to answer your questions. But when you think about it, Occams Razor, who the heck names a wine after a 17th century monk? I mean, that's the whole idea, and why these guys are brilliant is because it's marketing. It's taking a wine that's a really nice blend, and I love this blend a lot. The Syrah and the Cab and the field blend is wonderful, and it gives you a lot of different things you can taste. I do have a charcuterie plate here, which we took from the restaurant, which we're going to enjoy when we're done. And I hope that you've had a chance to taste these wines with food because, like I said, the food really brings out a lot of the characteristics of the wine that you don't get by just sipping it. And if you really like this wine and you want to buy some and you set it down, this wine will last for 5 or 10 years. It's got that much going on. So being on the low end of a high-end producer is a beautiful thing. So I really hope you enjoy this one as much as I do. So the next part of this tasting is talking about a wine from Lebanon. And I'm not sure if any of you have ever tasted a Lebanese wine before. And frankly, I hadn't, and not that I remember anyway, until about a month or two ago. I brought this wine into the restaurant. Customers loved it. We've sold a lot of it. And I wanted to share it with you. One of the things that's different, and I think you see the picture of the front of the winery in Lebanon, is that it is totally different than the New World Winery in Washington State and the nice winery that you saw pictures of from El Chesty. It's a huge contrast. Lebanon and this winery is really in an old barn, and some of the pictures that you're going to see of the wine region where it's located are next. So I wanted you to see the 3 different regions that are in Lebanon today. Someone asked me a question, in biblical times, where do they get their wine from? Where do they grow their grapes? Well, this is one of the places that they grew their grapes. So they've been doing this for a long time. They are in the Bekaa Valley, and that is a valley that is in between 2 mountain ranges. 3,500 feet is where their winery is, and where their vines are. And 3,500 feet is higher than most places you're ever going to see in this country that grow wine. What that means is you have this shift from about 90 degrees during the day to 60 degrees at night, which slowly ripens the grapes. And that's why when you're close to the eastern end of the Mediterranean like they are, you still get those breezes. You still have the cooling breeze that makes the grapes ripe and gives them all their character. The winery is about 180 years old. It was recently purchased by Issa. That family, Fowzi Issa, that family is a family-owned winery. He and his 2 sisters own it, and they operate it. With everything going on in Lebanon, I really wished we could have a chance for you to meet and talk with him like we did with Pinto and with Michele, but unfortunately not. But I did want to, again, just point out to you, this is an old winery. You have this beautiful picture in the winery. I felt like I was in a church when I saw it. It was pretty amazing. Very different place. This is an arid region. You can see by the topography there that they're up pretty high in that mountain range there. I have a better picture of it. But it's really different in terms of harvest. So harvest there, they don't have all the fancy equipment and machinery that we have in the New World doing all the work for them. So there's a lot of manual labor to make this work. This is a great picture because you can see the mountains in the background. And again, rocks, soil. Certain parts of this are going to have sandstone. Some other parts are going to have clay. And if you remember what Michele said, it brings different characteristics to different grapes depending on where you grow them. This is another example of a area that is arid and gets about 11 inches of rain every year. They call this winery the most seductive ramshackle winery in Lebanon. And I hope you have a chance sometime, if you really like the wine, to look up Fowzi Issa. And they've got a couple of YouTube videos with him that I think are helpful. So if you're interested, follow through. And again, you know, you have just a little basket of grapes at harvest. Very, very different than what we're used to in this country or in any of the New World wineries. So what I'd like to just do is talk a little bit about this wine and what I believe it goes well with. Like what you heard from Pinto, wines like this, a little bit more medium to full-bodied wines that have the characteristics of plum and cherry and spice are going to go well with equally weighted food. So You can look at lamb, you could look at steak, you can look at a pasta dish, meatballs, lamb meatballs. I mean, it's just a bunch of different things. It goes well with charcuterie plate, so it'll go really well with some of the cheeses. As long as they're not a bitter cheese that would accentuate the tannins, it'll go well with cheese. It'll go well with almost anything. Again, this wine is much better with food than it is sipping, but I really enjoy it. I mean, I can sip it. And so if you like it, it's one of those great wines, Cabernet-based, Syrah-based, that'll go well with almost anything you can do. Put it, barbecuing, this will go great with that. Barbecue chicken, whatever you might want to bring into that. So we've had a chance to learn and try, and so like I said before, I hope you've been drinking these wines and not waiting for me, or because there's no cues here. Remember, there's no rules. So I hope you had a chance to taste these wines and that you enjoy them as much as I do. They are readily available in Maryland. We have them available at the restaurant. If you wanted to buy them from us, we can sell to you at a retail price. Or go to your favorite wine shop and talk to them. The important thing is that you've had a chance to try some really fun and different things. On behalf of the folks at Gilchrist, we have a Q&A coming up, so I hope you're using your chat here. And I think we have a couple questions, so I'm happy to answer them.
Joe, Paul and Donna want to know, what's the story about how you found these wineries?
Terrific question, Paul and Donna. Somebody has to taste wines at the restaurant, right? So that's me. So I have this difficulty of having all these wines stacked up. I got to take a moment, taste them, and see if I like them. But really, the story is that I seek out good value wines, wines that I think our customers will like, wines that I like. Because if I'm not going to bring a wine in that I don't like. So I look for that good value, something that's going to go with food and that has a lot of depth, so that you can have these wines with more than just one thing, so they're not specialized wines. But that was an excellent question.
Jim wants to know, how has COVID affected wine production?
Well, fortunately, grapes are grown outside and winemakers hang out outside, and they have a lot of work to do. So that's the good news. The difficulty with what COVID did is impact the supply chain. So a lot of these wineries are going to still produce really great grapes, and they're going to come up with some excellent wines in 2020. The difficulty is, if you have a bottling line and you're trying to have somebody come in and bottle your wines, well, you might not have it as close to when you'd want it. So there's going to be some issues with timing, getting equipment, getting things shipped in, and even shipping, wines around. But for the most part, COVID is not going to impact these wines and the wines that are made in this country or others.
Kathy asked, how often does wine get a perfect rating?
Oh, wow. Well, the perfect rating, forget about numbers, okay? Everybody gets hung up on a 90 or 95 or 100. Forget about numbers. The perfect rating is you like it, you drink it. That's perfect to me.
So, of these wines today, Joe, what would be good to have for Thanksgiving?
Great question. Thanksgiving, because there's so many different foods and so many different types of food, all these wines will go really well with Thanksgiving food. I'll give you some examples. Appetizers, charcuterie plate, things that aren't highly acidic or have asparagus or artichokes or things like that are hard to pair wines with. The Bianco will go great with that. That's like one of those wines you begin with and maybe at the end of the night to rest your palate you end with. The Occams Razor, as well as the Domaine de Tourelles, will go really well with turkey, really well with pasta, or we have manigotti, sometimes meatballs. Depending on what you do, it'll go really well with most of the food. Because again, we don't want an overly tannic wine. We want wines that are going to be smooth and easy to drink and drinkable now, even though some of these wines, except for the Bianco, will still do really well with some years of aging. So really, again, a lot of different things these will go well with.
Becky and Steve Barth are asking, of these three wines, which is your favorite?
The one I drank last.
Do you have a favorite wine in general?
Well, I have a tendency to like Italian wines because of the balance, the acidity, and because they're different than other wines. And I wasn't trying to be a smart aleck, even though I am most of the time, about, which is my favorite wine. It's like someone, I got 5 kids. Somebody says, who's your favorite kid? Well, it's probably the one I saw last. So that's why I said that. But these wines are all fun for different reasons. I do love Italian wines. I do love Pinot Noir. I love French Burgundy, white and red. So I like a lot of different wines. I like cabs. So again, it all depends on the season. Seasonally now, I'm going to be drinking a little bit more red than white. So seasonality has something to do with that as well. And if you're like me, when I order food at a restaurant and when I'm thinking about what I want to eat, I think about what I want to drink first. So to me, if I'm going to drink this wine, I know what I'm going to order.
Ross Crosby's asking, Kathy wants to know why you aren't drinking your wine.
Well, Kathy, you didn't see me before we got started. We already been through a bottle of this each. Now, I just think it's always best if we're going to do something like this in public and wanting to make certain I have my wits about me and I don't say stuff I'm not supposed to, that I don't drink anything until we're done. So I've drank all these wines numerous times. Believe me, I know what they taste like. And yeah, this might just be a prop, but it won't be a prop for long.
Sam wanted to know, is there what's an underrated varietal that you think really should be paid better attention to?
Wow, excellent question. Riesling. Riesling is underrated. Why? Because so many of the German Rieslings, and if you're as old as me and you remember the Leap from Milk and Blue Nun and those things, just destroyed Riesling. It was like drinking syrup, really sweet, yucky syrup. So Riesling is one of those varieties I look for, and I look for it in places like the Finger Lakes in New York, like Austria. Germany is now toning down the sugar in their Rieslings and making much better wines. Riesling is one of those grapes that's great now and gets much better with age. So that's my vote for the most underrated varietal.
Joe, now that these wines are open, how long should we keep them and how should we store them?
Great question. So let's go back to how we started. I asked you all to make certain that you chilled these wines and then opened them slowly as we got into the wine tasting. And if you started at 4 o'clock, then maybe you took them out at 3. But that's a good thing. So always best when you're done with the wine, put the cork back in. I mean, if you have a VacuVin or something, or if you have a Sparger with nitrogen CO2 that they sell, you can do that and put the cork back in, stick them in the refrigerator. Do not take any of these wines, red or white, and stick them on the counter unless you don't like them and you want to cook with them. Otherwise, always in the refrigerator, keeps them fresh. They'll last much longer. All these wines, maybe with the exception of the Bianco, and the second or third day, the red wines are going to taste even better because they've opened up a little bit. So that's the one thing I'll always suggest to you. Make certain you don't drink your white wines too cold. You'll lose a lot of the flavor and the characteristics of the grape and the wine. And do not leave the red wines out on the counter and then serve them because they're a little too warm. Cellar temperature was about 55 to 60 degrees. That's what they recommended doing it. And so highly recommend. Back in the refrigerator, you'll enjoy them for a few days. I want to, again, thank Gilchrist and thank the folks here at Taste of Howard County. Remember, this is our 35th anniversary of the Taste of Howard County. We really miss it this year. We were talking about it earlier, how much we're going to miss seeing everybody, the camaraderie, meeting the other restaurateurs and people. I mean, we have a great time. We share wine. So we really miss you this year. I hope this helped a little bit. I hope, as much as I like doing this, I hope we can do this all in person next year. We are ready to go with the next phase. So I want you to look at the chat. The chat has a URL. It's www.gilchristtaste.givesmart.com. That's gilchristtaste.givesmart, not GetSmart, but givesmart.com. And please join us for the rest of the program. Thank you so much for your attention. I hope you love the wines. I do, and bon appetit and salute.